Um, well, I feel like I have to be doing something that other people have to do, like peer pressure and, with the sex and drugs and alcohol, but not all teenagers are like that, and I'm definitely not like that. And people do think that because in a TV show or movies or books or music, that all teenagers are like that, but not really.
Well, we're both overly sexualized and then treated like a fragile child all in the same instance. We're told you can't go out and drink, you can't walk anywhere on your own, you can't go anywhere late at night, and it puts all the blame on us if something bad happens, so we're treated like a fragile child that can't go anywhere and do anything. And in the same instance, in the media, we're shown makeup, we're shown, clothing that's very short, very revealing, like you're meant to look very adult, so it's like you're being treated like a kid and a grown adult woman all in the same instance.
Does this make you feel like men put these stereotypes upon you?
I think it's both men and women. I think that's because you're raised with it. Women are kind of internalized with it. You hear women say, oh, she's wearing really short shorts, she's a slut. Oh, she always covers herself up, she's kind of a prude, So it's sort of internalized, both men and women think about these stereotypes all the time, and sometimes they start to believe it like it's the truth.
I think we like to believe that women have achieved equality in this country, but in reality it's nowhere close yet. Of course we've made strides, but women still have huge disparities in pay in most professions, almost every profession. Teaching is interesting actually, because especially in the lower grades where you don't need to be as smart or as much of an expert.
So when somebody stereotypes African Americans, I feel hurt and sad and confused because it shows me two things about a person. One, that they don't care enough to invest time into learning more about them and learning that the stereotypes aren't true and that they don't deserve that type of treatment. I mean, no one does, but I feel more, sympathy for them because of how they were treated in the past with the whole slave issue. And so I think even they've been through, I feel, a lot, and they still have discrimination today, and I don't think that's right because they've done nothing wrong, ever. And even if they do commit a crime or something, other people commit crimes of different races. So it's not fair for us people to target them and continue to stereotype them because they're just as same as us and we do the exact same things. And I think it also shows me that people aren't willing to learn more, and I think that's what bugs me the most, that they're not willing, because you don't make change with people who aren't.
I really don't feel that stereotype component directed at me anymore, especially with all the diversity that you have, especially here in Arizona. We have our first black president. However, in my experiences with others, as well as in my professional career, I know that there are those that still feel that their stereotype is there, that they are profiled, based on their skin color or hair. So, and although we've come a long way as a nation and as African Americans, Hispanics, different ethnicities, I can completely understand where individuals still feel as though just because of their color or their ethnicity that they're still being stereotyped.
Filipino American? Okay, so have you ever been offended when people assume something else of you?
Yeah.
Can you tell us the...
Because back in elementary or in middle school, they tell me, are you Chinese? Or, because of my eyes.
Yeah.
Kind of experience, I guess, assumptions based on kind of my appearance. A lot of times, especially at the beginning of the school year, a lot of students ask me, what's your race, what's your ethnicity, and their first assumption is that it must be Mexican. Because I feel like in Arizona, if you have dark hair and darker skin, everybody assumes that you must be Mexican. And I don't think that that's necessarily a negative thing. I just think it's a common assumption that people make, and I'm not offended by it. It's just interesting that that's kind of the first thing people think when they see someone who might look like me.
And can you tell us about your little 3rd grade experience?
So probably the first time I ever experienced racism or prejudice was when I was in 3rd grade, and I was at the drinking fountain, and I was waiting in line with this kid named RJ. And I remember that he was talking, and I don't even really understand why he was saying this to me, but he just was talking. And I remember he said, you know, well, my grandpa says that different races shouldn't mix, and you know, whites should marry whites and blacks should marry blacks, and you know, Mexicans should marry Mexicans. And I just remember being a little kid and just kind of being, you know, just listening and just kind of agreeing and not really knowing really what he was saying and how that was totally the opposite of what my whole family was. But I also remember that later my mom kind of pulled me aside and kind of shared when I was older how my teacher was actually crying when she heard that, because my teacher was a white woman who was married to an African American man, and it really, I think, hurt her, because you can kind of see where the seeds of prejudice and where the seeds of racism kind of start young. And I'm kind of glad that, you know, my own experience was different. You know, my mom kind of explained to me that certain people have these beliefs, but those beliefs aren't correct. And you know, it's hard for me to kind of grapple with, because, you know, here's this kid telling me this is the way it's supposed to be, and then here's my family who is totally not that. You know, my dad is Filipino and my mom is you know, Irish American.
Yeah, I definitely feel like people meet me when they find out I'm Jewish, have certain expectations of who I should be and even what I should look like. Like, I often get to look very Jewish, which is a stereotype in and of itself, right? Like, because I don't have a big nose and like crazy frizzy Jewish hair, people are like, oh wow, like, you must not be Jewish, right? But that's something, and that's kind of an insult, right? Like, what does a Jew supposed to look like? You look just like everybody else.
Definitely, especially since coming here to Arizona. I grew up in Chicago and also a little town in Illinois, and I've only been in Arizona this year. And I often feel very uncomfortable being a white person in this city, because I feel like there's a perception, due to a lot of the political reforms that have been passed in the last several years, coming from usually white politicians, that white people are not very supportive of immigrants in this state and often hold racist beliefs. And I personally do not associate myself with those groups, and am very uncomfortable when people make assumptions about me that I do. And that's a hurtful thing, and also I think prevents me from making relationships with people sometimes, and I'm judged before they get to know what I actually believe and who I actually am.
Some stereotyping because I am a Hispanic woman, and some people have automatically think that because I am Mexican that I can go home and make tortillas and be ironing all day, and I don't even know how to make tortillas, and I do not like to iron.
And how do you feel when people think that about you?
Sometimes I'll just laugh it off, because I think it's a lack of a little bit of lack of education from their part, so it's not their fault that they're not fully exposed, and they have enclosed their mind just to a certain idea, and they don't know that's times and women and things are changing.
And finally one day I was reading, because that's all I did that summer for my classes, and I was like, this is ageism, this is discrimination, this is stereotype. They think because I'm older I don't have anything to offer. Then this came out of lots of conversations with my friends. They think because I'm older, they've got an image of what that means, that I'm older, that I don't have anything to say, that I have nothing interesting to say, couldn't possibly understand what they have to say. It was heartbreaking, actually. It was really heartbreaking. And because it's not true, number one, and number two, because it really cuts you off from getting to know somebody and that you might actually like.